Hey folks, in this video we're going to talk about what CI/CD is and why we use it in software development. Okay, CI/CD stands for continuous integration and or continuous deployment. Some people also use continuous delivery, and all these terms are often used very interchangeably in software development. Why is this important? Let's take a project like Gmail or Trello, for example. Software engineers are deploying changes very often, right? Often there are new features that are added, designs that are changed. Just in general, software moves really, really fast, and it changes really, really fast. And it's very easy to break things. You can imagine, let's say you're using Trello. There's there's a lot of different features, and there's like a lot of different edge cases. Like if you can imagine like what Trello does for you, right? User can add a card, right? User can click into a card and see the contents. User can leave a comment. User can add a label. User can add a label color. User can move it to another bin. Like there's hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of features in any application. And whenever a software engineer wants to deploy a change, let's say we just want to add, change the copy of this from add button to, add something else. How do you have confidence that the change that you're going to merge into the main code base did not break something else? And that is where CI/CD comes in. Let's go a little bit more concrete, and let's search up a few popular open source projects. So for example, we are using Ruby on Rails. So let's do Ruby on Rails GitHub. This is where the majority of the open source community opens like pull requests, merges new code into the code base, releases new versions. And let's actually take a look at the pull request section. These are things that like people would want to get into the main code base for the next release. And if you look at, let's look at the first pull request. You can see this check mark, and that's something related to CI/CD. So let's actually click into it. The actual issue doesn't matter. Looks like they're changing something about active model lint and, just some renaming. And you can see that there are these automated checks. Now, if this was like early 2000s or even like 90s, the way you would solve the problem of, hey, I want to make a feature change. How do I know this change doesn't break anything else? Is you would QA manually, go through, the hundreds, tens of thousands of edge cases and just literally go through each scenario and make sure that it still works as intended. And that's very tedious from a human resourcing perspective. It takes a lot of people, and it's not something that humans are great at doing. Humans are not great at doing repetitive tasks consistently. They get tired, and it's just like not very efficient, but computers are really good at that. And so, for example, in this pull request, like this person wants to get, these 3 files into the main code base, and they want to get it in without breaking anything, and they can get confidence that they didn't break anything by running tests. And so if you look at, let's just go through this line by line, right? Lint, check spelling all files with code spell. So what does this mean? Well, how do you know that code? So there are certain like best practices, and it's nice to not have typos in, documentation and any comments and any like variable names. It's really nice to not have any typos. And so what this, what this particular thing does is it checks for typos. So basically it ran all the typos, all the typo checks, and it basically found nothing wrong with it. Rubocop. So Rubocop is a It's a thing to help automate code review in terms of like the boring parts of code review. So for example, like there are these things called style guides on the internet where, for example, if you're coding in Ruby, we can open this link up. There are certain things that you should and should not do in terms of like just making the code readable. And so we can actually, yeah, let's do a very non-controversial one. So let's do this, right? Like, let's say if you're used to JavaScript or the old way of writing JavaScript, you would add a semicolon at the end of each line. If you're coding in Ruby, you don't really need that. Like, it doesn't, you don't really need to do that. So like if you're reviewing someone's code and you see this, right? Normally you would just manually say, hey, this is bad styling, or please like remove semicolon. We have a style guide, etc. And then the user or the developer, sorry, would, remove the semicolon and change it to this one. And then like a manual, like a software engineer would actually like approve the change. And Rubocop is a tool to help just remove that human from needing to the comment like manually if something like did not pass style check. And so it's just a way for developers to get feedback without needing another developer in terms of style. And then same thing with spelling checks. Looks like there's 2 spell checks here. And then finally, build kite/rails. So this is where we have tests. So if we look at our repository, for example, we are working on the search filter. So we were using search. So like, for example, Starbucks. Before, when we first implemented this returned an empty list. And so as a result, we added some tests to help debug that. So if I open up my code editor, there are some tests that I'm running. So test / everything in this test directory, right? And I can do something like Rails test, and that would run, the 4 tests that I have. And so this is kind of what Ruby on Rails is doing on their code base. So if you look at build kite/rails, if you look at the details, they take it to a whole new level because, we only have 4 tests. They actually have like thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of tests because they have so many different packages. They have so many different edge cases. And basically whenever you commit something, that they're running rake tasks. They're just doing a bunch of stuff because there's a lot to test. And so, it's like 6 hours of edge cases being run on the Rails server. It looks like there's a timeout here. So what does that mean? Well, that means that there was something wrong either with, the test being set up or, it actually introduced the breaking change. So let's actually look for a failing test. Let's see if that's actually possible. Yeah, look at this. This guy or this person was demoing something new, and looks like they have a failing test. And so for example, if you're on Ruby version 2.7 action pack, there are certain tests that fail because of this change. And so this change is not ready to be merged in the main until all the test passes, or until, it's part of a new Rails version. And so it doesn't really matter to be as backward compatible, and you just like include it as a breaking change. This is what, so build kite is a tool that apparently this repository uses. We can look at other tools. So for example, Vue.js is also a pretty popular open source framework with a, pretty large growing community. And we can take a look at what they use for their CI/CD. So sometimes GitHub repos have this thing where it's like, build passing. So this is like the latest CI build for the main branch. Coverage is a way to like measure, okay, the tests that I'm running, how many lines of code in the entire code base am I testing? And usually if you have a high percentage, it means that, if I wrote code somewhere and I would be very confident that there are tests that cover that, so that, you know, if there's context that I don't know, or there's something I break that I wouldn't know otherwise, that test would catch it. So if you look at Vue, let's just actually pull up the latest pull request here. If you look at Vue, they use a lot of other things. I think the product that they decide to use is Circle CI. And yeah, spinning up environment, checking out code, installing it, saving cache. It's just doing a lot of things. If we go back and if we look at test E2E, which stands for end-to-end, they're gonna run, you know, end-to-end tests here. So it looks like they have 267 edge cases, and it's really just like, it's really testing behavior. And so yeah, and then we're gonna go through one last one. This is the React.js project, and maybe this will give you a chance to like kind of understand the ecosystem here a little bit. So React is something that was pioneered at Facebook, and so there's like the main drivers of this. There is a huge open source community, but like, for example, core team of React, like a few of those members work for Facebook. Facebook is paying them to maintain and lead React.js as a project. And Facebook has been around for almost 2 decades now. And so if we like take a look at their CI project, right? They have a lot more checks. Look at that, 36 successful checks, and they have just a lot more stuff. And yeah, you can see that they use Circle CI for a lot of things, but they also have, so let's, if you scroll down to the very bottom, they have this thing called CI code Sandbox, and this is an internal Facebook tool, right? CI, I actually don't know. Let me just see if this is a company or not. Code Sandbox. Oh, okay, cool. Cool. Looks like this is a way to play around with stuff. Let's actually take a look at this website. Code Sandbox, experience the future of web development. Yeah, okay, cool. Looks like it's a way to like collaborate. Okay. Cool. So yeah, this is what Facebook does for their React project. Let's actually see what this check. Yeah, Circle CI. Looks like they use Circle CI. Cool. So that is that kind of wraps up explaining what CI/CD does. It's a way of running tests in an environment that ensures that you won't push any breaking changes. Of course, if you don't have sufficient coverage, you may introduce some breaking changes, or if you're not testing, you know, a tricky edge case, you'll also won't catch that. And so again, this is not a perfect system. Things will probably not be 100% foolproof if they pass CI/CD, but this is a way to give developers a lot of confidence in what they're shipping. All right, thank you for watching. If you like these videos and want to see more of them, please subscribe. And yeah, in the next few set of videos, we're actually going to set up CI/CD for the GitHub repo that we have. Yeah, catch you next time.